Welcome to episode 4 of the Princeton Podcast with Mayor Mark Freda. In this episode, Mark caught up with Leticia Fraga, Princeton's Council President. They discussed Leticia's background, her role as the Princeton Council President, how her involvement with Town Council helped her feel at home here in Princeton, and some of the current issues being addressed on the Council's various committees. So without any further introduction, let's join our host, Mark Freda, and his guest, Leticia Fraga, for episode 4 of the Princeton Podcast.
Leticia, thank you very much for being here. And you're council president.
I am. It's very exciting.
Yeah. So, I bet you a lot of people listening don't understand what the council president does. So maybe you could help tell them.
I'd be happy to. Some of it I learned just doing the work. I already understood one of the main roles is to preside over meetings in the mayor's absence. I also, one of the functions is to coordinate activities among council members, whether it's there's something going on in the community that I want to make my colleagues aware about, or coordinate something that one of our community partners is doing, where they want to involve members of council. I'd like to stay on top of that and to help bring in my colleagues on council to participate on those. I would say one of the most pleasant duties that I've had, enjoyable, is to officiate over weddings.
Yeah.
Officiate weddings. This year, I actually had the opportunity already to officiate a wedding for a couple whose first language is Spanish. And so I offered to do it in both English and Spanish, and they really appreciated that. So,
I'm sure they did. That's
yes,
great.
Yes, and I truly enjoyed that.
That's tremendous. So obviously you don't get to be council president the first year you're on council. How many years have you been on council now?
I'm starting my 4th year on council. I served 1 term, which is 3 years, and I'm just starting my 2nd term, so going into my 4th year.
Wow. So 2 more years left, and then we'll see if you run again. Maybe.
And then we'll have to see what's next. Yes.
So, I know that you obviously were, well, it's not obvious, I shouldn't say that, but you were involved in a lot of community activities before you were on council. Can you share what some of those were?
I was serving on several boards before becoming a member of one of our boards, commissions, and committees, which we have, and I can talk more about that later.
Yeah.
But I was one of my first involvements in the municipal work was serving on the Human Services Commission. But before I even was appointed to that commission, I was doing volunteer work, which included volunteering my time for the Human Services Department, which I raised my hand when I read an article in Town Topics several years ago. I would say maybe 11, 12 years ago. I learned that because of budget cuts, that the department was now down to a 1-person office. That the director, Cynthia Mendez at the time, even though we had a significant immigrant population, that Spanish-speaking population, that she didn't speak Spanish, and her staff person that used to translate was no longer in the office. So I volunteered my time there, and that's actually how I got started with being involved in municipal work.
Which is really interesting. And I guess it also shows that if people are tuned in somewhat and pay enough attention, that there are opportunities for people that live in town to help with all these, what we call BCCs, yeah, boards, committees, and commissions. But yes, there's a lot of these BCCs that people could join, right?
Yes, including there's also ad hoc task forces that we occasionally will have either because of public interest, advocating for an initiative, and we'll form a task force to address a specific need. and including, right now the active ones are, there's the permit parking task force, there's the cannabis task force. We had a dog park task force that I know that they finished their work, but because of the pandemic, it hasn't moved forward. But hopefully they'll have an opportunity to present their work to mayor and council in the very near future.
Yeah. So, okay. So out of those three, the cannabis task force, I guess, will be in front of council. Well, I'm trying to think the date we'll release this podcast, but
yes,
in the November timeframe.
Yes.
Right. And you're part of that task
yes,
force. Right?
I'm a member of the cannabis task force, and it has been, even though we understood that more than 75% of the Princeton voters voted in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana, we didn't expect that there would be as much pushback as there has been about actually allowing for sales at a dispensary or any other type of business in Princeton. But the importance of all the task force, not just, I would say, any initiative, any policy that we want to move forward, that we have learned over time the importance of reaching out to the community and soliciting feedback, because we don't want to get to the point where council is going to actually be considering a policy and then getting pushback from the public that we didn't expect. So I mentioned the permit parking task force. That's one that I actually have been working on that with two other colleagues on council, and also volunteers from the community. We've been working on that for 2 years already. You think we're working to address the parking needs of residents, employees of our local businesses, and visitors. Sounds simple, but it's not.
A lot of moving parts. Hard to please everyone on that one.
Exactly. But we're soliciting feedback. We're going neighborhood to neighborhood, and because we now understand that what one neighborhood may feel about the topic, saying, "Well, we don't have an issue here. Don't touch my neighborhood," but other neighborhoods that have really been struggling with their parking needs, that we need to host a community-wide meeting so the residents from the different neighborhoods can hear from each other. So
right. So I imagine all of that takes a lot of time. And
it does.
Have you ever tried to track on average how many hours per week you're spending on council business?
I haven't, but I can tell you my husband has. So I know that, as you know, we have evening meetings, and sometimes there's weekend commitments as well. So I would say definitely it's more than 40 hours a week.
Yeah. So
definitely.
It realistically is another full-time job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So here's another thing I think people would love to hear about. What made you decide to run for council?
It's not something that I, grew up thinking, one day this is what I want to be, this is what I want to do. It grew out of my work, my desire to help my community, to help others. Is something I've instilled in me by my parents, wanting to help others. And that's why I started volunteering. That's why when there was an opportunity to serve on the Human Services Commission, I enjoyed it. It was very rewarding. But then it got to the point after someone was actually, at the time, there were council members that were sitting council members that encouraged me to run. That it was then that I realized maybe I could do this. And I like to say that it's something that I never knew I always wanted, because it really has been a rewarding experience to not just advocate for policies. and initiatives, but I'll actually have a role in moving them forward.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you can do
Yes.
by being on council or just being involved.
Yes. But something that I did learn, I thought magically I get on council and I'm going to be able to move forward these initiatives that I've been advocating for a long time. Something that I learned early on and nobody told me about, that it really is a group effort, and that in order to be able to move things forward, really need to have others on board.
Yeah.
So, and it's collaboration.
Yeah. So, changing topics a little bit, how long have you lived in Princeton now?
So I've been more than 20 years now.
Wow.
I lived in Seattle before coming to Princeton, and I had my dream job there. I worked for the county's Office of Civil Rights Enforcement, investigating complaints of discrimination and facilitating mediation, bring the parties together when there were issues, and if they couldn't be resolved, then sending them to the prosecutor for them to prosecute if there was a violation. It was very rewarding for me, and if it hadn't been for my husband being transferred to New Jersey, I might not have been here. Well, probably would not have been. But in the beginning, I can tell you, I didn't think I liked it here.
Yeah.
I didn't. I felt that I didn't belong here. That it's very different from Seattle, obviously. But I really felt like it was. I'm originally from Mexico. My family immigrated here when I was 12. And I used to tell people I felt like I had immigrated again coming to Princeton because it felt so different.
Right.
And like I said, it didn't feel like home. It took a long time. But one of the reasons why I would like to encourage others to be involved who also feel that perhaps they don't feel like they belong, they don't feel like this is their place, is to really become involved, because I can honestly say that when I started volunteering, when I started getting involved in the community, actually organizing community building events, that's when I felt that I was home. No, when I first came here, I came with my daughter was a teenager. She went to Princeton, graduated from Princeton High School. And she moved away to go to college, but then came back. And now she's here I have 5 of my grandkids are also here in Princeton. My husband and I have seniors now at the high school, teenagers. And I can say, I don't know what it would have been like in Seattle to raise a family there. It's a big city.
Right.
But here I can certainly say that it's a great place to raise a family.
Well, it's interesting to hear that how you became involved and how that helped you, right?
Yes.
But think of all the things you've been able to do with the experience you had from Seattle and how much that has tied into many things that you're involved with as a council person.
It has. It really has. Not just that, but work that was done in the past too before. It's like I suddenly realized, working on council, and sometimes things come up where, have to figure out a solution for some issues that we may not have experienced before. But if I hadn't experienced in my previous life, I find that really, without knowing it, a lot of the work that I did before coming to Princeton, that it really laid the groundwork, and it's almost like it created the path for me to be where I am now.
That's so great. So we should thank Seattle for helping to warm you up to be ready for everything you're doing here.
No, well, mainly I thank my parents, because they really, if it hadn't been what I saw them doing as far as helping others, and even, for them, English was their second language too. But even if they didn't speak it perfectly, that didn't stop them from getting involved and speaking out when they wanted to, if they thought it was to help others.
Right. Which
Yeah.
is a great story. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. So let me ask you, again, getting back to the BCCs, the boards, committees, commissions, because I know you mentioned a couple. You mentioned
Yes.
Human Services, and you mentioned the task force, the couple task force that you're on. But each council person's on like a whole bunch of BCCs. So I know
Yes.
there's a number of others you're on. So I don't know if you can remember every one, but could you share?
I think I can. Maybe not all that. Sometimes I forget the task forces because those are ad hoc.
Yeah.
We only I serve on them until we're done with our work. But I have, and I feel that my colleagues may disagree, but I feel like I have the perfect list of BCCs that I'm liaison to. So I have, in addition to Human Services Commission, there's the Civil Rights Commission, there is the Board of Health, there is the Youth Advisory Committee, there is the Public Safety Committee, which in that role, chairing the Public Safety Committee, I'm the designated police commissioner. I also serve on the Local Emergency Planning Committee. And then there's, and the Economic Development. And they really all come together because very often I find that one board or commission or committee is working on an initiative, or they want to even initiate something and say, oh, this one of my other BCCs is already doing this, or they're working on this. Perhaps you could collaborate on that.
Right.
And they do. Very often we find opportunities for collaboration among BCCs.
Right. And I think that's more of a recent phenomenon, or at least it's grown more recently than it used to happen in the past, which, as you pointed out, I mean, there's so many overlaps. So how great is that the different BCCs actually work together with each other?
It is. But it's also remembering, understanding what one is working on that could possibly be, that another one could possibly work together on. Like, right, we'll have coming up our Board of Health, a subcommittee of Board of Health worked on a structural racism initiative. And I suggested that they reach out to the Civil Rights Commission and the Human Services Commission for feedback, and they did. And now they're going to be moving forward on some of those ideas and present them to council in the near future.
So one of the advantages to all these BCCs is that the council person that's the liaison to them helps to connect the different BCCs, different topics and everything as you have done here.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Which is, so quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
So do you have, looking after, okay, so you're in your fourth year, well, I could say we all know, but again, I need to stop saying we all know, but I know that you've been involved in a lot. Are there certain things that you look back on and just say, oh, this was like a bigger win for me, and as far as was really happy that we accomplished this, that, or are there certain things that just hang in there that you say are?
Yeah, something that you may not know about me, or you may, if you've noticed or maybe not noticed, is that I have a very difficult time taking credit for things that I worked on, because I feel that anything we accomplish is because we did it together. So I really have to think hard when somebody will ask me, well, what have you done that you're most proud of?
Yeah.
I'm proud of everything that we do. One that really I actually initiated before when I was still serving on the Human Services Commission was the reestablishment of the Civil Rights Commission. I worked together with some colleagues. It took us 3 years. So that's why, I don't feel too down about the permit parking taking 2 years already. To reestablish the Civil Rights Commission, it took us 3 years. But, they're established and they're doing great work. And then there's some that are I see as needs. And this is one of those areas where it really takes collaboration with my colleagues or others. For example, bringing the Child Health Conference back to Princeton. After the hospital moved, we had our residents were really struggling to take their children all the way across Route 1. Many of them don't drive. And transportation was an issue. So bringing that back, and that's something that the Board of Health, Jeff Grosser was really instrumental in doing that. And my colleague, Michelle Perron Lambros, worked together on that to make it possible for Capitol Health to have that contract. So now they can be providing, we call them the Well Baby Clinics, and it's for infants to 18 years old who can get medical services here for many walking distance from where they live.
Which is a big thing. It's very significant. So that's a huge win.
Yes, it is a huge win.
Yeah.
I have a list of others that, like I said, I hope I can see them come to fruition in my lifetime. But there's other that I see them as obvious needs, and so I think we all have our list of priorities, and understanding too that, we need to work together in order to make those happen.
Right. So I think that's pretty good advice, whether you're an elected official or anyone trying to accomplish things.
Yes.
Work with others and don't worry about being the one that gets the credit.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's a great trait. All right. So let me switch gears a little bit. So what do you like about living in Princeton?
Well, where I live right now, I live actually is walking distance to downtown. I like that my kids are able to get to where they want to go without I don't have to worry about driving them around, driving them far. As far as me getting involved in the community, I had to do that. I didn't, I couldn't sit around waiting for the welcome wagon to come welcome me to Princeton. I really had to get to know what was here, what events were taking place. There's a lot of arts and culture. We don't have to go to New York or Philadelphia, but it is nice to have both nearby to be able to go there. But, just we can stay in Princeton and without having to go anywhere and really get to experience community. There's a lot of community with our community partners, the Arts Council, the library, and other community partners that will organize and host events. So there's a lot to do. Having the university too. The university has many. I think it took a while for me to realize that the university was also for us. It's not just for the students and the faculty. That there's events that take place that are also open to the public.
Right. Yeah. There's a wide breadth of options available to people if they look around. It seems one common thread is the more people are involved, the better. What do we do to encourage people to get involved in all the different processes and things we have with local government?
Some we're still trying to figure out, because very often we hear from individuals that they didn't hear that something was taking place until after the fact. Yeah. So now we have a newsletter, which is really great. Every opportunity I have, I encourage people to sign up for the newsletter, because that would happen to me too. Before I knew, very often I would read about something that had already taken place. So encourage individuals to know where to look for if they want to, as far as enjoying what the community has to offer. But I would also encourage them to volunteer. I haven't counted how many BCCs and task forces we have.
A lot.
We have a lot. So there's a lot of opportunities. And even if there's not one that somebody is interested in, I think residents can get organized and suggest whether it's an initiative. And that's what happened with the dog park task force that grew out of a petition. There's also now another, I almost forgot, there's a task force that I'm also a part of, is the Community Center Feasibility Task Force. Right. That's something that I think we only had our first preliminary meeting, but then moving forward, I can see with the members that are serving on it, there's a lot of work ahead for us. But if we can come up with some recommendations and some solutions that we can propose, it's really going to be have a big impact for our community as far as providing not just opportunities for our youth, but all our residents to have a place where they have a sense of place, a location for a sense of place. Because not everybody is going to go to the Garden Theater or to the university or even to the Y. For a long time, we've had families that have been asking us for more places for their children to go to. So there's a lot of opportunities for residents to be involved. And like I said, if there's something that's missing, we're open to hearing suggestions. But anytime when I hear from residents asking, why don't we have this? Why aren't you guys doing this? Meaning mayor and council. And I said, if you suggest it, if you'd like to take part in leading that effort, please, we'd like to hear from you.
Right. And I would just like to put a plug in for both the newsletter and for people that might want to join one of our BCCs. If they go to our website, www.princetonNJ.gov, there's a place to sign up to get the newsletter, which comes out twice a week. And there's also a place where they can apply to the different BCCs, which I forget exactly how many we have, but there's a boatload. And they can say, here's the top 3 that I would like. And you provide information. Here's my resume. Here's what I've done. And that's a way for people to be involved. And I think another theme you have is how important it is to be involved.
Yes. And actually, time for me to put in a plug for, we have Human Services and the Civil Rights Commission. I know for a fact, both have at least 2 vacancies that we need to fill. So it's a great opportunity for our residents to truly become involved and be part of the solution.
Right, to be part of the solution. And the more people are involved, the more they know. It just makes the community work so much better when we're all working together.
Exactly.
Yeah. You had mentioned once or twice that you have other things on your list for things that you might like to see that we address or accomplish over the next few years. Are there any of those that you're able to share right now, or I don't know if there are things that you haven't talked to others yet about, or
no, I'm not sure. We're still trying to figure out. Some are beyond our reach, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to work out a solution. For years, and I think if anybody that's looking will notice that several of our residents have to trek to the other side of town to do their laundry. Where I live, that's one of the, they cut through there to get to the shopping center. And on their bikes, I've seen women pushing strollers full of laundry because we only have one laundromat and it's on the other side of town. Yep. And many of our residents who don't have laundry facilities in their, where they live on the other side of town. And so that's something that I would like to see. It's been a challenge because from what I understand, the main challenge is the sewer hookup fees.
The fees are
exorbitant. Fees. Yeah. But from what I'm trying to explore, and that's not just me, I know others are as well. From what I understand is that affordable housing developments are the only ones that can actually get a reduction in those fees.
Yeah, affordable housing and nonprofits.
So if there was a nonprofit in an affordable housing development, that's where I would see an opportunity to where we could potentially do that. And that would be a life changer for many in our community. I think everything that we do, almost everything that we do, is any policies or initiatives are to improve the quality of life of our residents. And that would be a major one. That would be a major one. In speaking to some of our families who are in that situation now, some of them only do their laundry once a month. And very often, they wear the same clothes more than once, more than twice, because of the challenge of getting their laundry done, but also because of the expense.
The expense, yeah.
Right,
which so many of us take as something that we can do for granted. It's no big deal, right? But it's not the same for everyone.
So there's a lot of things that we take for granted, like access to healthcare, which, I'm very excited. I was very excited when I learned that Capitol Health was coming, and then we'd have an opportunity to have them for our well baby clinics to be offered there. So there's just things that, like you say, we take for granted, that I think all of us being aware and then working on trying to find solutions for those issues that we may not be experiencing, but if a significant portion of our population, our residents are, that should be our priority to try to solve that.
Right. So it's interesting in having heard everything that you've covered so far, how you're dealing with things like right now in the present day, you're looking to things to the future. So it's quite a balancing act, trying to figure out all the different things to address, and then finding the time and the resources to address all of this.
Right. So, there's actually, when we've formed a task force to work on addressing the issue, including when I first started with permit parking, say, let's see what we can address first, the low-hanging fruit. And I learned there's no such thing as low-hanging fruit. At least when you think that there is, there's other challenges that can come up. But there's no reason for us to give up just because it's challenging. I know a previous council had tried to address the parking issue in the past, and it didn't go anywhere. And when I first joined this permit parking task force, I was told that it was like touching the third rail because it was so controversial. But, just because it's hard or controversial doesn't mean, if it's needed, doesn't mean that we should rise to the challenge.
Right. Totally agree. So, Leticia, I want to thank you very much for covering so many different topics, but for your time here today, but also for all the time that you and the other council members put in doing so much to help the town run as well as it does.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the opportunity. And like I said, it really is not just council, it's you as well. This really is a group effort for anything that we're able to accomplish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the 4th episode of the Princeton Podcast. Special thanks to our podcast guest, Leticia Fraga, and our host, Mayor Mark Freda. The Princeton Podcast is produced as a community service by HG Media, providing audio, video, and website design services here in Princeton since 1999. If you enjoyed this episode of the Princeton Podcast, please share it with your friends and be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.